the neuroscientific world's telling us we're using somewhere between 5 and 20% of our brain capacity. And we're a bit of an embarrassment, us humans. We're wandering around with these magnificent 40 billion neuron brains and using just a fraction of them. And I think the way that we can transform ourselves in a progressively changing kind of a way, if that's not a paradox, is engage in the process of expanding, developing, and opening up consciousness. And I don't think by any means, and I don't stand here in any way suggesting that meditation is the only way to do that. I think there are many ways to do that. But I do love the way that meditation is something, and the way that I teach it, is very much something that we can build into our day and build into our lives in a very simple way that can facilitate that process of expanding one's state of consciousness on a day-to-day basis, on the bus, on the train, on the plane, in the car. Make sure you pull over first and then close your eyes. We can do this anywhere. And if we can engage inside of that process, as we expand our conscious state, what happens is our perspective changes on life. I use the cinema metaphor, and that is, what we're finding is as stress and tension, the demands of life are building, we're starting to find ourselves getting drawn further and further up towards the front of the conscious cinema. And as we get drawn into the front of the conscious cinema, what we find is that the experience of life becomes a very overwhelming one. It's like you're sitting in the front row. The noise is, it's very noisy. It's all overwhelming. We can't get a perspective on the movie. It's all over us. It's very uncomfortable. The solution is not leaving the cinema. That is not the solution. The solution is to get back a few rows in the cinema. And if we can get back a few rows in the cinema, then it changes everything. Now, we don't want to be in the front row, that's no good. We don't want to be in the back row, that's no good either. There's that. You're telling the story. There's that sweet spot. You know that sweet spot right in the middle of the cinema? You just really dobbed yourself in there. There's that sweet spot right in the middle of the cinema where, the sound's great, the movie's right there, it's engaging, but it's not overwhelming. And that's very much the way that I teach meditation, is about developing and cultivating that state of consciousness. Because then we can be right in the thick of it, right inside of family, inside of friends, inside of careers, inside of society, and really enjoy the experience. And it can be very engaging, it can be very, we can be really drawn into it mentally, physically and emotionally, but not be overwhelmed or consumed by it. And that, I think, is really something. The world does not need more people, heading for the hills, rolling the rock in front of the door and leaving it all behind. We don't need any more of that. That's not what this time is about. What the world needs is more people, more conscious, right in the thick of it, engaged inside of families, friends and careers and society with higher states of consciousness. And to define that, the closest I can get to defining the qualities of higher states of consciousness and the things that people report as they engage in expanding consciousness is greater clarity, more creativity, more energy, more joyfulness, more intelligence and awareness. That's very much, they're the very logistical, manifest expressions of higher states of consciousness. As we lose consciousness, we tend to lose the clarity. The conscious fog starts to set in. We start to lose creativity, lose energy, lethargy, lose joyfulness, lose intelligence, lose awareness. And as that happens, and the ever-increasing demand schedule is engaging with us, and we're losing a conscious state, that's where the whole thing becomes overwhelming, all-consuming. That's where stress, strain, misery, suffering, dis-ease comes out. Lack of ease starts to come out of that experience. And it's got nothing to do with leaving the cinema. We've just got to learn how to engage in the process of developing a state of consciousness that isn't able to be overwhelmed. I call it unoverwhelmable. Now, developing that conscious state is what allows us to become a willing participant inside of life, generally, but even inside of extraordinary situations. The world is simply a self-referral phenomenon. The world is designed to feed back to us where we are consciously in any given moment, and it's instant. As we're more integrated human beings, we start to find that feedback becomes more and more instant because there's people around us, there's things going on around us, there's situations going on around us, and they feed back to us so quickly about where we consciously are. And when we can take the approach and own our conscious state, we can own it. We're only likely to really own our conscious state if we know how to change it. If we don't know how to change or shift our conscious state, we're not willing to own our conscious state. We're going to blame it on all kinds of other things, our experience. We get into the finger pointing. It's him, it's her, it's them, it's Julia, it's Kevin, we get into all that stuff. And there's a lot of that goes on. But when we know that we can shift our conscious state, we start to be a much more willing participant in engaging. I own my conscious state. I am where I am, but I know how to shift it. Now I'm willing to embrace it and to really admit that my whole experience is a self-referral phenomenon. The world is being to me as I am to the world. And if I can shift this, then I can change that experience. And that is a very powerful place to be. And it's transformative insofar as the way that we relate to everything, everybody and everything. And if there's one thing going on in the universe, in one word, it can be summarized as evolution. Everything must evolve, everything must progress, everything must expand, everything is moving towards becoming more conscious of its reality. And we can engage in that willingly, or we can go in cuffs. Obama used it in his last election campaign, the saying of Mahatma Gandhi, which was, be the change you want to see in the world. And this is what we've got to adjust. We've got to stop the finger pointing. It's a pointless exercise. Depending on other people and other organisations to make change take place, it's just not going to happen. What we've got to do is start taking personal responsibility for change, and the way that we can change is not trying to think our way into change, but move beyond the state of consciousness that we've currently got one way or the other, and develop a broader perspective where we can literally see things differently. And if we can do that, then what we actually do is, as we change, the world starts to shift and change around us. And I'm sure you've all experienced that at some point where you have shifted your awareness one way or the other, and you watch things that you have tried to change around you with effort, force and control, and had no luck whatsoever, and found that what those things do is they change. A little metaphor I use is, you go out to lunch or a nice dinner and you get some parsley stuck in your teeth, and you're standing there, in the mirror trying to, get that parsley out of your teeth. It just won't move. But the moment you realise that is in fact this, and you shift this automatically changes. And that is pretty much the way the world works. This is a reflection of this. And if we stop doing this and start just working on adjusting this, we actually get a result. And it's so much easier.